This is today's episode. Do you feel ready? You feel...
I'm always ready.
Okay, perfect. Really? God, what's that like? What's that
There's a
like?
lot of things that I'm always ready to do, and then
Okay.
there's some things that will put off and put off and put off and put off because they make me uncomfortable, like making doctor's appointments. So,
Ooh, stop it. That has literally been the theme of my day. I have 2 that I set a reminder for 3 p.m. today, and it was like, make these 2 appointments, you crazy person. Anyway, talk about being a self-defense proponent, and then it's like, you have a lump in your body that doesn't belong there, and you need
probably
to
take care of the
take care of it.
lumps.
Dude,
Yeah.
I gotta take care of this
See,
lump, dude.
that's why I got one of these Hume bands because it tells me whether or not I'm taking. It told me that my metabolic age is 27, so I'm like, hell yeah, more
What?
whiskey for me.
I'm 27, so that's
There you
great.
go.
Honestly, life is good here, so I'm really happy for
Yeah.
you, all that to say. Well, what a great way to kick off this episode, guys. I'm sitting here with Caleb Giddings of Taurus and a personal friend in this crazy industry. Finding the people that you enjoy in this industry is kind of like when you're in college. And if you can't relate maybe in another way in like a club, but you find those people in college that you slowly see more and more in classes over the years, and you're kind of like, like I see you, and then you kind of get to know that person, and you're like, ooh, like you're actually a really awesome person. Like, I'm really glad we connected in this, X field. And then you get to have your people and you kind of build this group. And then you're like, I actually feel kind of established now. And Caleb's part of that group of people that I've really grown to feel established with and feel like I can confide in, and ask for, like professional advice in this, again, crazy industry with very few standards. So I'm very lucky to be friends with you, Caleb. And thank you for sitting down on my podcast. I just went onto yours. Would you please tell the listeners about that as well as who you are from your own words?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Caleb Giddings. I shoot guns a little bit and I talk about them. Um, but no, it's funny because when these are going to come out in reverse order too, because we did mine first, but it's coming out after this one, which is the magic of the internet.
Love
But
it.
so I've been in the firearms space since 2006. I didn't start doing it full time until 2010. I have shot just about every handgun shooting sport you can think of. I've also shot a little bit of 3-gun, which is 3-gun is buns, and I will stand by that opinion. Um, but I've done a lot of shooting. I've done a lot of traveling for this industry. Done a lot of writing. I'm currently the general manager of marketing for Taurus USA, which has afforded me the opportunity to be involved in the entirety of our product life cycle from design to sales and execution, which has been a lot of fun. And I think probably what I'm best known for is being a modern day advocate for the utility and practicality of revolvers in a world that is dominated by semi-automatic striker fired pistols. And yeah, I shoot guns a little bit and I talk about them a little bit. I mean, when you really get down to it, that's all we do, right? And then somehow we've managed to, my wife says I have a Peter Pan job because I don't have to grow up. So, and I'm like, she's right.
That's so funny. I relate to that a lot. Definitely resonate with that a lot. Um, you know, I love what you said. And by the way, 3-gun is great for some people. I just want to preface with like, I love having a myriad of guest speakers come on and say their opinions like that, because that's literally what this is for. I'm here to hear your story, your opinions, why you feel the way you do, so that we have more and more data points. And of course, the sharing of resources is always my one of my biggest kind of missions with this podcast. So I'm so here for all of that, even if it's like slightly controversial. Like, you get to have the experience you have, and it is so unique. I love that you speak to the application of revolvers and the space. We talked about that a lot on season 1. You've come on, I think, for 3 episodes so far. So if you heard that and you're like, wow, I'm actually really interested in learning more, Caleb articulated those applications super well in season 1. Please check those out. And if you want, just make sure you come back, because today I actually want Caleb to share his journey in IDPA, which stands for the
International Defensive Pistol
Pistol
Association.
Association, which is exactly what I was going to and did say. Of
Course.
course, it is different from USPSA, the United States
Practical Shooting Association.
Association, which is what I was also going to say. And one of the most common questions I get from people is like, which one should I engage in? And if I'm being totally honest with you, feel free to poke holes in this. One of the things I typically say is, first of all, I've only shot one IDPA match, so I can speak to it to that level, right? Like I've shot one IDPA match, and um, it was very fun for a couple reasons, which I don't want to like spoil anything, but I like the stage applications. Like you have a little storyline with each stage, and then there are some more parameters in which you have to shoot, and that kind of pushes you on another level that USPSA maybe doesn't. USPSA is a little bit more gamified. There are some like general things I tell people, but I ultimately just share that USPSA is what I've chosen, especially because of like my community, right? Like my community is primarily here in Utah based in USPSA, and I love that aspect of the shooting. So at the end of the day, I hope you're collecting from my little word vomit that it really should just be what's best for you. And so my goal with this episode and what our conversation will lead to is you get to learn more about what IDPA has to offer, what Caleb loves about it. And if you resonate with that, then hopefully that encourages you to go and shoot with some really fun IDPA people, which are like the rest of the shooting community from what I've seen. They want to help you succeed.
And we're all pretty fun, pretty fun people. And
Yes.
it's funny, like, so the answer to that question of which should you shoot, USPSA or IDPA, and I will even throw and we'll leave it to those two for now. The best answer that I can give you is whichever one you can make work within your schedule,
I like
right?
that.
Like that's like because there's a lot of places like where I live, I've got an IDPA match that's 15 minutes away, and then my closest USPSA match is 45 minutes away,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So what that means for me is on a weekend that I'm home with my family, I'm asking my wife for anywhere from, like 6 to 8 hours of me not being home versus 4 to 6 hours. And that does make a difference. It may not seem like a lot, but when you have a kid, it is.
Right.
So the basic, very simple answer is whichever one is more accessible to you and is easier to fit into your schedule. That being said, I will now fulfill the role that you have asked me to fulfill and talk about some of the benefits to IDPA, specifically if you are the sort of person who your goal in carrying a gun and shooting competition is to enhance your ability to defend yourself. All right. So if that's your goal, then I do think IDPA offers some unique benefits. And I used to be a proponent of primarily shooting USPSA. I used to shoot mostly USPSA because at that time in my shooting journey, at that time in my life, my goal was to become the best practical pistol shooter that I could make myself, right? And I do believe that if that's your goal to become the best practical pistol shooter that you can make yourself, then you should probably shoot USPSA primarily. You should train for USPSA because the training and the shooting of that will channel you into making decisions with your shooting and your training that make you better at USPSA. And as a side note, if you become a very good USPSA shooter, you will by default become a very good IDPA shooter because by and large, they're testing the same skills. They're testing the ability to shoot rapidly and accurately at targets that present themselves in complex ways from different positions on the move and that sort of stuff. The big advantage, I think, to IDPA when you are, but let's say you don't, necessarily want to be a grandmaster or you don't want to go out and, become the greatest practical pistol shooter that you can possibly be. You just want to carry your gun, get better at carrying your gun, and also you enjoy that competitive element. There are some really great advantages to IDPA, and the biggest one is that there's a much lower bar for entry for IDPA in terms of equipment cost. All right. You, it is while it is possible to go out and shoot USPSA, to go to a gun store, buy a gun, buy an optic, buy a holster, and then go shoot a USPSA match. That's possible if your mags hold enough rounds and if you're willing to take some competitive disadvantages to do that, right? Like it's no one's really running truly stock guns out there. The flip side is with IDPA, you can, well, they don't make Glock 34s anymore, but back in the day, we use Walther. Walther's a great example. You can go buy a Walther PDP. It comes with 3 mags. You go get a holster and 2 mag pouches, and that's it. That's all you need. You're done. You can go shoot the match. You don't need any more support gear beyond that. So that lower bar for entry allows people to start shooting and start competing at an earlier stage. And I think that's a huge benefit. Um, I think the mandatory concealment is a huge benefit.
Mm.
You know, if you're going to carry a gun concealed, IDPA allows you to carry it AIWB. It allows you to carry, IWB behind the hip. You can literally show up to a match with your real world concealment, your real world carry gun, and you're set. There's obviously artificialities with loadouts and round counts and that sort of thing because you get that in every shooting sport. But I think that's a very important advantage. And I think the last advantage, and this is something where I have done a 180-degree switch on my opinion about the importance of this, but all shooting sports, well, let me back that up. Maybe not all, because I don't know shit about skeet. But all of your handgun sports, whether it's bullseye, which is all the way up to USPSA and Steel Challenge, measure a balance of speed and accuracy. Every single one of them, that's what they're measuring, right? In a sport like bullseye, accuracy is prioritized much higher than speed. So your balance point is way over in the accuracy section, right? In a sport like USPSA, I would make the argument that speed is prioritized higher than accuracy based off an analysis of hit factor scoring and how your points per second scoring system works in USPSA. And I think IDPA does a good job of drawing that back and placing a higher emphasis on speed than it does, or excuse me, a higher emphasis on accuracy than it does on speed without sacrificing that speed component, right? Like if you walk through an IDPA stage and you shoot everything in the down zero, which is the IDPA word for the A zone, you're going to lose the match. You have to run, you have to shoot fast, you have to move. But the penalties for shots in the C zone or for no shoots in IDPA are much harsher than the penalties for a C zone or a no shoot in USPSA. And if you would like me to do that math, I can, but there's a lot of it's mathy math. Like there's a lot.
Oh,
Like I
sweet.
did a
Thanks.
I did so this a long
Okay.
time ago. I did a theoretical breakdown of like 5 different stages
Oh,
based on hit factor scoring versus time plus scoring, which is what IDPA use, and how much percentage you lose for various penalties. And IDPA penalizes a lack of accuracy very, very harshly.
okay.
Um, like it is an extremely tough penalty for shots outside the A zone, and then hits on non-threats
Makes sense.
are very tough penalties. And I like that because again, if my goal in the shooting journey is to make myself better at carrying my gun in the real world and shooting my gun in those situations, I want to emphasize the fact that every bullet has a lawyer on it, and the penalties for poor marksmanship in the real world can be absolutely devastating to your financial well-being, your, desire to not be incarcerated, and a whole bunch of other things.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, there's so many little points I want to go from there, but the very last thing you said is really lovely. Um, I would like to add to this, not this is not me poking holes or disagreeing by any means. If you are one of those people where USPSA is closer to you and more convenient for you, but you're like, "Oh man, well this IDPA sounds better to me." You can walk in with your own goals. Like you can walk in and say, like,
Mhm.
I'm going to prioritize accuracy. I'm also going to shoot from inside the waistband because you can do that now, and that's how I shoot. Um, because maybe you don't have as much access to IDPA if this sounds great to you, but you can still apply some of this to USPSA. The scoring and the outcome is going to be different. So I kind of feel like it goes back to your first point, which is, of course, it was distance availability, convenience, but also like, what is your goal in,
Yeah.
like, the kind of shooting sports?
absolutely. What you want to do is going to be a strong determiner of what you do in the shooting sports.
Right.
And I'll say this too, like they're all good for you,
Right.
right? Like you're not gonna if you go and you become a B class USPSA shooter, you are by default better at shooting a handgun than like 99% of planet Earth,
Mm.
right? Um, so it's not going to hurt you by any means. And I think with back to what you said, the idea of people being able to come in with their own goals, right? Like let's say you are a concealed carry focused person and you want to shoot USPSA from your carry gear versus, a more optimized equipment setup. I think that's great. And if I love that. I've done that for funsies. I have friends who do that. Obviously you do that. I think that the difficulty in that for me anyways, and this may be for other people, is it's difficult for me to suppress my desire to win and to perform well, knowing that I'm going to have to take that hit with the gear,
Right.
right? So, like, if I go shoot, I did this, I shot a steel challenge match and I shot it, uh, I shot it in with as realistic a gear setup as you can get to steel challenge because there's some differences with that rule set. And I didn't do as well as I did using my race holster because my race holster gets the gun out faster. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that again because I want to perform. Um, but if a person has the mental discipline to be able to do that, to be able to say, I know I'm not going to be the best A class shooter or the best whatever because I'm taking these handicaps for concealment or this, that, and the other thing. Yep, knock yourself out 100%. And again, I don't think I used to be like that sort of person who's like, oh, USPSA is better or oh, IDPA is better. They're not. They're just different sports. They're testing different. They're testing the same thing in some ways, but they're testing it differently. And if you like one and don't like the other, it doesn't change my life. I'm just, trying to give people reasons or information on what they can and can't do. I think one of the big, I will say this, IDPA as a sport has, how can I couch this very, very carefully? IDPA as a sport has fewer extracurricular personality motivated distractions than USPSA. Um, which
Okay. All right.
uh
I get that.
if
I get
I
what you
have
mean.
I have run into less of that sort of thing shooting IDPA matches than I have shooting USPSA matches. And that may be a product of online culture and it's just all IDPA shooters are too old to have computers, but um
Right. It is a different
but
culture slash
it is.
community presence for sure. You feel it. You feel
It
it.
is.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who shoot both, right? Like if
Right.
you go to, and especially at the high level, if you go to IDPA nationals or some of the bigger state matches, the guys that win those matches are going to be the guys that are winning USPSA matches, right?
Right.
Like there are like Nils, JJ, these guys all shoot the big IDPA, the big USPSA matches. Um, but I think at the individual club level, everything's great. I have just found as honestly, I've just found in my old age that I kind of like shooting IDPA more. It's more fun. And for me too, I think what happened with it was with what I do in the self-defense side of this, right? As an advocate for carrying revolvers, for fighting these guns and defending your lives with these guns, USPSA revolver is very fun, very challenging, and very technical. But with the addition of the 8-shot guns, the long barrels, and all of that, it had gotten divorced from the practical application of a wheel gun enough that if I was going to say, hey, no one is carrying a 6-inch 8-shot revolver to protect themselves, right? They're carrying 6-shot guns, they're carrying 5-shot guns. And the only place that I can really practically apply that and then also be competitive because I am a competitive person was IDPA. And so I kind of deep dived on the sport for a while and it's been the last few years and I'm just having a lot of fun. I could figure out how to fucking win nationals, I'd be really happy. But that'd be,
Absolutely.
that's whatever.
Right. We're just, yeah, no, that's, I have no doubt you can and will do that. When is the next one?
September of this year.
Oh,
I
wow.
may or may not
Okay.
go. I
That's
mean,
about where Shotgun
so
World Shoot is. So,
ooh, yeah, that's gonna be more fun. You're gonna be in Greece. I'm gonna be in Ohio. Like,
yikes.
let's pick
I know
places
exactly what
where
you're
I would
talking
rather
about.
go.
Yeah, totally get it.
Um, oh, you've been to Marengo or the
Oh, yeah.
Cardinal Shooting Sports Center?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. To
I've
teach
never been.
Filipina.
Is it
Yeah.
nice?
It's a nice range.
It's a nice
It's a
range.
nice range. It's a quiet place to visit. So like you can get a nice little Airbnb. We got one kind of like out in the woods ish and like um
Oh no,
yeah.
I don't do Airbnbs. No, no, no,
Oh,
no,
really? You're a hotel person?
no. Only hotels.
Only
I'm sorry.
hotels.
I'm not going to pay somebody money to stay in their house and then have to clean it up myself. Absolutely not.
That's fair. Some of the cleaning
That's
stuff is
ridiculous.
ridiculous. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Gosh, but there is a question I want to ask you, and I don't want to forget the age-old controversy of competition shooting applying to self-defense, which I'm gonna just I'm gonna jump in first for sure and say that like I hope you guys caught in I can't remember if it was in your episode or mine, so maybe let me just reiterate. I use USPSA to become more proficient with my firearm so that I can focus more on self-defense work, like shooting from retention, things like that. And same thing with shotgun, right? Competitive shotgun is a means to get better with defensive shotguns, even though some, things might vary as far as like modified to pump action divisions. But with that said, there doesn't have to be a direct application, right? A direct line. You can work on a skill in a sport for it to apply to the defensive aspect, a defensive aspect, right? So let me just say that first before anyone gets a little upset at this conversation. Um, I would love to know from what you said earlier with like IDPA, of course, you mentioned they have consequences that you don't have in USPSA with accuracy. I love the way you articulated that. As someone who's done extreme close quarter concepts, retention shooting, weapons based entanglement, and we know the importance of marksmanship in that, which is very, very little. Um, where would you say the where would you say the application kind of ends with IDPA? Like how it can only take you to like X place, and do you have any recommendations for someone listening who's like, okay, cool, I can get that aspect from IDPA, but I definitely need to go do something like take a ShivWorks class or like, what would you recommend? This is not a very well articulated question. I'm hoping you'll just kind of take it and run.
I think that competition shooting will, and if you sprinkle in a couple of like really good performance shooting classes here or there to, assess and that sort of thing, competition shooting will take you 110% of the way of the distance that you need to go in terms of gunfighting, in terms of gun handling and shooting skills, right? If you
Right.
make it to IDPA master, which is the band of skill that IDP Master covers starts at like high B and then goes all the way up, right? Like I know B class shooters who are IDPA masters. But if you make it to the IDPA master level of skill, hell, if you make it to the IDPA expert level of skill, which is kind of again in that B class ish band, you are you now possess the defensive handgunning skills necessary to solve any defensive firearms encounter that you are likely to run into in the United States, other than like crazy extreme outliers, right?
Right.
Like you have the shooting skills to win the fight once you are at that level. There's no question in my mind. IDPA will get you there. USPSA will get you there. Lots of things will get you there. In Caleb Giddings' perfect world where everybody, trains themselves optimally, I think that once you get to that point, or while you're going on that point, you should be well rounded. You should find other coursework to develop yourself, like ECQC, to solve that close quarters grappling problem. Or my friend Cecil Birch, Immediate Action Combatives, teaches a class called, I think it's called like, stay on your feet or something like that. And it deals with kind of the same stuff that you deal with ECQC approaches. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt as well. Great shooter, good dude. I think that it's important to get into that stuff to get well rounded. And especially the one that I think is the most important is, and it's actually to my mind more important than even the grappling piece, is the ability to, as Craig calls it in his coursework, manage unknown contacts, right? I have managed the fuck out of way more unknown contacts than
Ooh,
I've shot people.
yeah.
Like, and it is and my I've talked about my wife a couple of times on this show. She's from Manhattan, right? She's managed way more fucking unknown contacts in the time that she lived in Manhattan and took the subway than most of us will do in our lifetime, but she had to learn that skill the hard way. She had to learn it quite literally from the streets. And I found that, in talking to her about stuff like that, she's like, yeah, doesn't everybody know how to do that? I'm like, no, babe, no. Lots of people have no idea how to deal
Right.
with the crazy homeless guy on the subway. Like, that's
Right.
not a skill that just everyone's born with. But if I had to pick one skill, that would be the one.
I love that.
Develop in yourself the ability to observe, assess, and manage a potentially risky situation so that it doesn't turn into a use of force, right? And sometimes you won't be able to. And
Right.
that's where all of that other stuff comes in. But if you can observe a situation and be like, ooh, I don't like the cut of that guy's jib. He's acting weird. Let me take a slightly different route to wherever it is that I'm going to go, instead of walking down the street with your head buried in your phone until you're 2 feet away from the guy and he throws a cup full of feces at you. Uh, then you're way better off. That's a real scenario that I was witness to. Good
Oh,
times. Um, Witness to from about 15 yards away because I saw the crazy person.
there you go.
And unfortunately, the young lady who got the cup of shit thrown at her did not see him, and I was not in a
Yikes.
position to intervene.
Ugh,
But that's a
yeah.
different story for a different time. But anyway, no, I
There's
think
more?
if
Just
I,
kidding.
oh my God, yeah, I lived in Miami for a while. Miami
Oh
was wild.
shit.
Um, but no, I think, it's we all, everyone listening to the show is listening to it because they like guns.
Mm,
Everyone who listens to my show listens to it because they like guns. I like guns. I like shooting guns. I like training with guns. That is what's enjoyable to me. So, seeking out things like IDPA and USPSA to make myself more proficient at that is a logical and very easy thing to do. Whereas stepping out of your comfort zone into coursework where you're dealing with, grappling, or again, to my mind, and at least my thought process is, if you've got the gun thing on lock because you do it for fun, the most important thing to do is to deal with the problem, is to learn the skills to deal with the problem before it becomes a problem. You should, again, in a perfect world, also be a good grappler. You should also take some driving classes. You should have some emergency medical classes. I also think that you should probably be that to really consider yourself well-rounded. You should be able to write a poem,
I was about to say,
and
like,
read
social
music.
skills, like, communicate, like,
Yeah.
be a good social engineer. Like, people are, we all have very similar needs that, like, unite us all, and oftentimes empathy is the answer. Like, you don't have to start
Mhm.
yelling back at the guy that's coming and yelling at you. You might be able to work him down if you need to. Like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" While setting a boundary. Gosh.
I was the guy that needed to be worked on the other day. So this is a fun
Oh,
story about a lack of empathy on my part.
okay.
I took my family to Disney World last week, and we were on Pirates of the Caribbean, which is my one of my favorite rides because I've been riding it since I was a small child in California, and I wanted my son to have that experience with me, right?
Yeah.
So now
That's
you could say, I'm not super proud of myself in this moment, but
okay.
now behind us was some teenagers, four
Yeah.
teenagers. Now, what I did not know at the time was that they were part of a marching band that was at Disney to play in one of their parades, right? Now,
Oh.
they were, it's fine. It's totally fine. Everything worked out okay. So now they were being teenagers,
Right.
and they were being a little bit louder and a little bit more rambunctious than was appropriate for the environment
Sure.
while we were boarding the ride and while the ride was setting off and all of that and the other thing. And we go, and the pirate head is talking, and it's like, dead men tell no tales, and they're fucking jabbering. And we hit the first drop, and one of them goes like, oh no, where are they taking us? And they're being really loud, right? And I Didn't think about this. This was not premeditated or anything like
Uh,
that. I whipped around and I was angry dad mode. I'm like, hey, shut the fuck up and let the kids enjoy the fucking ride. And
I don't
then,
blame you.
right after I turned around, was the point where they take the picture in the dark to show how everyone is on the ride. And I'm making a face where I'm like, where I realize that what I have done could have unintended social consequences if they complained about the angry man who shouted about them.
Uh-huh.
My wife is turning to look at me and go like, Caleb. and, but the kids in the row behind us, they look they have the most shocked look on their faces because
Oh my gosh.
the no like look, let's be
That's
real,
so
marching
funny.
band kids aren't the kids who usually get told to shut the fuck up, right? Like they're
No,
usually
they're
a little
not.
bit
I
better
can say that as
behaved.
someone who's in the orchestra and like was around them all the time. Yeah.
And having a scary adult whip around and angrily tell you to shut the fuck up,
Yeah.
it did produce the desired effect. They didn't talk anymore on the ride.
Yeah.
Um, but that was an instance, to go back to what you're talking about,
Yeah.
where I should have had better emotional regulation, because
Sure.
I know if I had turned around and been like, "Hey, can you guys be quiet? Like, my son's on this ride. I really want him to experience it."
Right.
They would have probably been like, "We're sorry," you know.
Yeah.
And then if they hadn't, then I could have escalated to, "Cool, shut the fuck up."
Sure.
But I went from 0 to 100. So yeah, emotional
Yeah.
regulation is also really important in this world.
Yeah. First of all, I think that's a super vulnerable story to share. And I appreciate you talking about like what you did versus kind of what you might do going forward. Like, gosh, again, back to like being a human and having empathy, like you were really trying to create an experience for your son. Like you had all these prior motivations in your own experience, and it led to what it led to. And you can only reflect, and like it wasn't some dude with, a blade that decided to stab you as a result. So that's cool. But
Yeah.
I think
I
that
also didn't get kicked out of Disney World, which is cool.
that's good. I would love to see that photo, by the way. I shared
I'll
that
text
one
it to
guy's
you
name with you,
after.
so I'm gonna need to see that photo. This is the only fair way. If you want to know what I'm talking about, you have to go listen to Caleb's episode. Um,
Tomorrow when it comes out,
when it
or
comes out
Wednesday when it comes out.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yes, 2 days from now for sure. Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that. I love your that's for sure gonna be a highlight on the Instagram page, like how important mucking is. And I really like the way you said that. So that's gonna be a great one to share. And speaking of, you guys aren't following social, we share exclusive highlights on at She Shield Pod. So head over there. We'll collab with Caleb and you can see his page as well from there. And of course, all of his information will be in the show notes, which are the notes below the title. Caleb, I know you have to head out. Before you go, I'd love to know what your goals are this year in shooting. I think it's a really fun thing to ask the various guest speakers I have. Sounds like you're not going to make IDPA nationals, but what else do you have going on?
Who knows?
Yeah, I love it.
So my one real goal is I'm going to Bianchi Cup again. This will, I think, might be my 8th or 10th year. I forget which one.
Okay,
And I want to set a PR. That's it.
beautiful.
Like I have defined my victory condition for Bianchi Cup this year as setting a PR. And if there's a lot of other things that I would like to happen, that go with, hopefully come with setting a PR. But really, I want to shoot. I want to shoot that match the best version of myself that I have. So yeah,
I love
that's
that.
it. That's what I got.
That's super exciting. And for those of you that want to follow along for that journey, check him out on social media. Again, tagged in the show notes. And yeah, thank you, Caleb, for coming back on again. If you guys want to learn more about the modern day applications of revolver shooting, please go check out those season 1 episodes. They're still up and ready for you all to hear. Yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I haven't been doing any official sign offs. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks to Caleb for coming on. I appreciate you.